Thank you all and good afternoon. I'm Dick Riley, the Secretary of Education, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you here this afternoon to the White House for this Congressional Gold Medal ceremony honoring 9 courageous Americans who literally changed America and American education for the better. Now, everyone here in the East Room this afternoon is a special person, and I am so pleased to have all of you here. But I want to recognize a couple of people. Mayor Bill Campbell of Atlanta is here, and I'm delighted to see that virtually all my colleagues in the cabinet are here, and I would recognize them. While you'll soon hear a few words from some of the congressional leaders, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of the many other members of Congress who are here, who join in the presentation of this award. This is a congressional medal, and I would ask them if they would stand and be recognized, and we thank you all for what you have done. Members of Congress. That we have all joined together today to pay tribute to these American heroes and heroines confirms that all of us, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, believe not only in the critical importance of education, but also in the importance of committing our public leadership to seek high standards of education for all children. The event and the actions that we recognize today were a major event in American history. We know that, helping to transform the way that we view education in this great country of ours. And these brave citizens were leaders in the battle to ensure that we, as a nation, will not let intolerance or inequity interfere with the ability of any citizen to acquire this precious commodity, the opportunity for a quality education. In joining together for today's event, then, we're paying tribute to the courage of all of these people. But I hope that this ceremony will also serve as a reminder that we as Americans must have the courage to carry out their cause, a cause in support of one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice and a quality education for all. It's now my pleasure to introduce Senator Tim Hutchinson from the state of Arkansas. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. What a great day. I am so pleased to be here in honor of 9 true American heroes, all of whom are natives of my home state of Arkansas, and all of whom have changed our nation for the better. With courage and conviction, they placed themselves squarely on the side of freedom as they tried repeatedly to walk through the doors of Central High School in 1957. Daisy Bates, whose passing we grieve today and whose memory we honor today, Daisy called them the embattled 9. They quietly but resolutely persevered, and their courage forced this nation to come to terms with the incongruity of revering the Declaration of Independence while simultaneously denying the fundamental truth that all men are created equal. Thrust into the spotlight of human history, they could not have fully understood how much rested on their shoulders. To have fully known would have been more than I think any teenager could have borne. But they persevered. They demonstrated grace in the face of hatred, poise in the face of tumult, and courage in the face of violence. And so it is right and fitting to pay them tribute today in the awarding of these Congressional Gold Medals, one of our nation's highest honors, reserved for those among us who best embody the principles that we all hold dear as Americans. Today we must heed the example of these who've gone before us, these who stood for what was right and just in their day, with the hope that someday all our children might come of age in an America where every child would be equal in the eyes of the law, just as they are in the eyes of God. And when we leave this august ceremony, we must continue to honor the Little Rock Nine by renewing our commitment to the realization of Dr. King's dream of a colorblind society. So on this 10th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, we salute you, 9 brave souls who helped us bring down the walls of hatred, misunderstanding, and prejudice. So to what Daisy Bates called the embattled 9, we salute you, we honor you, we congratulate you. And now my colleague from Arkansas, Senator Blanche Lincoln.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, to my colleagues, to our constituents from Arkansas, and most importantly, those that we are here to honor today, those fabulous Little Rock Nine. Mr. President, mere words seem inadequate to honor the courage of some people, and so I am humbled to lend my voice to the chorus of praise for the Little Rock Nine. My husband, Steve, and I are products of the integrated public school system in Arkansas. My husband was a graduate from Little Rock Central High School, so was his father. And I want to thank each of you personally for making our school experience positive, productive, and blessed with diversity. There is no question in my mind that my life is more productive because of what you stood for. I truly value the lifelong lessons that I learned at an early age, and I might not have had that privilege of studying with children of all races were it not for you. I'd like to thank Senator Bumpers and Congressman Thompson for leading the effort to award the Congressional Medal of Honor to the Little Rock Nine. They are certainly worthy of this distinction. Teenage years are never easy for anyone, and so I cannot imagine how difficult it was for each of you to face the challenge of growing up with the nation and the world watching you, your every step. And I know that many of you were forced to change schools in the midst of your studies, adding yet another challenge to learning. While each of us is given a cross to bear at some point in our lives, few of us are asked to bear the cross in an openly hostile environment where even those who should be there to protect us, state leaders and school leaders, call us hateful names and sneer at us. Thank you for having the personal fortitude to endure taunt and even beating so that people like me could come behind you and grow up in a society where the ideas of all races are valued. In conclusion, I too would like to remember Daisy Bates, who has been put to rest today and whose memory will be fast in the minds and the hearts of many Arkansans. I know that she was a guardian angel of sorts to you, and that you often gathered in her home at night to receive guidance and strength. I know, without a doubt, she is with us here today in spirit. She leaves a legacy to our children, our state, and our nation, a love of justice, freedom, and the right to be educated. Today, as we pause to remember Daisy Bates and to honor the Little Rock Nine, I hope we all will be renewed and refreshed in our efforts. I'm encouraged by the words of Daisy Bates' niece, Sharon Gaston, who said, "Just please don't let her work be in vain. There's still plenty of work for all of us to do." I'm proud to be here to honor the Little Rock Nine. I'm proud to be a small part of this ceremony. And more importantly, I am so very proud to be a recipient of the actions that you have taken. Thank you. I'm supposed to introduce them. And now something that's even more difficult for me to do, and that is to introduce my predecessor, a man whose shoes are enormous to fill, and that is our senator from Arkansas, Senator Dale Bumpers.
Thank you very much, Senator Lincoln. Mr. President, distinguished honorees, Speaker Hastert, Senator Daschle, Congressman Gephardt, members of the Cabinet, distinguished guests all. First, I want to say that In my 24-year career in the United States Senate, I can think of nothing that gave me more satisfaction than assisting Benny Thompson in passing this truly remarkable bill. And we politicians always love to take all the credit, but before I go any further, I want to say, and I only speak for the Senate side of it, the person who is most responsible for the passage of this bill was my chief counsel and legislative director, Rich Glick. Rich, stand up and let him see you. This day has been much too long in coming, but nothing happens quickly or easily in the Senate or the House, either one for that matter. This bill came over from the House after Benny Thompson and I worked the House to get 290 signatures just to get it considered. It came over to the House, it went to the Banking Committee, and when it came out of the Banking Committee, it had a provision on it to extend the period for minting a coin honoring Jackie Robinson. I had absolutely no objection to that. We passed it in the Senate, sent it back to the House. The House had a lot of objection to it, not to Jackie Robinson, but because they had never extended the minting of a coin before. It came back to the Senate with the Statue of Liberty on the new dollar. Senator Dorgan, Senator Conrad, Barbara Boxer all came up for air because they wanted Sacagawea on the dollar. I've never felt so much like a hostage in my life. And finally, as the session wound down in 1998, and it's obviously that the Little Rock Nine had been trapped in all the shenanigans that can take place in the United States Senate, and I put a hold on the Congressional Gold Medal bill honoring Gerald Ford. A man, Mr. President, whom you just honored last week with this, and he was a favorite of mine. I adored Gerald Ford. But if you're going to get anything done, Senator Muskie said you got to be a you-know-what occasionally. And so the whole thing died. And Senator Daschle, you and Speaker Hastert and Congressman Gephardt will remember well when that few people assembled at the end of the session and wrote the entire appropriations bill. And I was lobbying Ted Stevens every afternoon in the gymnasium. That's where we get a lot of our business done. And one day, I found out that Senators Byrd and Stevens had agreed to put this bill. They took Sacagawea off because it didn't need to be on there. She's going to be on the coin, but the Treasury Department had the right to make that decision anyway. But they put Jackie Robinson and the Little Rock Nine on that huge bill, swore me to secrecy, and said if we ever hear that before we adjourn, it comes off. That's probably the closest guarded secret in the history of Washington. As Betty Bumpers and I used to sit around the breakfast table in Charleston, Arkansas with two babies and watch the evening news, the volatility and the violence in Little Rock, knowing that Daisy Bates' life was being threatened 3 and 4 and 5 times a day, and stiffening the spines of these frightened youngsters. And we watched, and I wanted to go to Little Rock. I knew I should. As I looked at their freshly scrubbed faces and the fear on their faces, and knowing that nothing less than the Constitution of the United States was at stake, I got a little cowardly because I knew that I might get killed if I went there. And I also knew that my little hometown, being the first school in the entire South to integrate its schools after the Brown decision, I knew that my time was coming to be brave, and indeed it did. I read the other day an interview, a 3-part series interview with C. Vann Woodward. Mr. President, you know him well, and I know you've met him. The most eminent Southern historian in the United States, been at Yale for many, many years. In the course of the interview, he was asked, "Why do you think the governor did what he did in Little Rock?" And Professor Woodward said, "I have no idea. I've often wondered. I have my own thoughts about that." But he chastised himself because he had not been as brave as he said he should have been. And then the interviewer said, "Did you make the Selma to Montgomery March?" And he said, "I did, but I got there late. And I've never forgiven myself for not being there in the beginning." And he made a distinction. He said, few people, he said, a lot of people do laudable things. And some people do sort of brave things. But very few people do truly historic things and heroic. These 9 children were asked to be both brave and heroic, and they were. And their place in history is finally etched, never to be erased. I said the other night, Friday night at Central High School in another ceremony, I can think of no time in the history of this country since 1863 where Lincoln's immortal words at Gettysburg are more appropriate. When he said, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it will never forget what they did there." Now, my distinguished friend and the guy who introduced this bill and deserves most of the credit, Benny Thompson.
Thank you, Senator Bumpers. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming out to be a part of this historic event. Let me introduce Ed Jackson, my communications director, who, as the Little Rock 9 knows, emailed and worded us absolutely to death. Today's ceremony is the product of the combined efforts of many people who worked tirelessly and with unyielding dedication to permanently record in our nation's history our gratitude to the Little Rock 9 for your selfless acts of courage in the face of overwhelming adversity. America pauses today to say thank you. For your perseverance and commitment to the principles of freedom and democracy, America pauses to say thank you. For all the times you felt like throwing your hands up in the air and quitting because you didn't, your country pauses today to say thank you. Today, for only the second time in American history, the United States Congress has awarded the Congressional Gold Medal to civil rights pioneers, and very shortly, when Ms. Rosa Parks receives her gold medal, it will bring the total number to 3. In their lifetimes, Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall, Fannie Lou Hamer, James Farmer, and Daisy Bates never received this award, and this is a disgrace. We have to stop pretending like there was never a time in America when the bitter, divisive laws of Jim Crow held more value than the inspirational words of Thomas Jefferson. Look around you right now. The mere fact that so many faces of different races and backgrounds can come together to rejoice in the victories of the human spirit over a system in which hatred and bigotry forces every American to lose is a fitting testament to the impact to these men and women who not only on our country, but on each and every person sitting in this room. The acts of children so seemingly innocent and naive proved to be stronger than the mighty Mississippi River when the Little Rock 9 chose to fully exercise their constitutionally guaranteed rights, rights so many of us take for granted. They brought the American system of educational apartheid to a screeching halt. They changed the course of our nation. Introducing legislation to award Congressional Gold Medals to the Little Rock 9 was my way of trying to put an end to the practice of passing over civil rights heroes in American history. It is my way of giving thanks to the people who've made it possible for me and others here today to stand. Now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend, the House Minority Leader, Richard Gephardt.
Mr. President, members of the Arkansas 9, leaders in Congress, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, Senator Bumper, I was very interested to hear that legislative history of this legislation. It reassures me that when I tell my constituents that we're trying to run the world's greatest democracy with a president and a committee of 535 people, and that I'm amazed every time we get anything done that I'm right. It was a good history, it was a good effort, and I want to commend Senator Bumpers and Benny Thompson for having the perseverance to get the Congress to do what we should have done a long time ago. Thank you for the effort that you made. If Martin Luther King had a dream, then Thurgood Marshall had a vision. It was his vision to open the schoolhouse doors of our nation to ensure that no child would be forced to accept an unequal education because of their race. That vision became a beacon to the nation in 1954 with the landmark Supreme Court decision, Brown versus Board of Education. But it took the actions of individual heroes in Little Rock and across the nation to turn that legal victory into the reality of triumph in the classroom. Today we honor 9 of these heroes who found the courage to lead and became the great forces for equality in our nation. Minnie Jean Brown Trickey, Elizabeth Eckford, Ernest Green, Thelma Jean Mothershead, Melba Patillo Beals, Terrence Roberts, Gloria Ray Karlmark, Jefferson Thomas, and Carlotta Walls Lanier, the Little Rock 9, your efforts, guided by the work of Daisy Bates, who we miss and mourn here today, were at the forefront of the direct action that ushered in the Civil Rights Revolution and brought down the walls of segregation in America. Through their courageous acts, the Little Rock 9 moved the cause of equality forward in a giant leap. Their heroism touched the hearts and ignited the conscience of an entire nation and world. With a combination of raw idealism and youthful courage, they overcame a legacy of ignorance and hate and led our nation to progress. They spoke to the moment, not through their words, but through the eloquence of their simple action. On September the 4th, 1957, the world saw the overwhelming force of the Arkansas National Guard turn away a 15-year-old girl in bobby socks from entering Central High School and into the arms of the waiting mob who couldn't see her humanity through their fear and their anger and their hate. That image, along with many others from those memorable weeks of confrontation, broadcast to the nation and the world an image of racism that was a startling wake-up call to white America, that it could no longer deny the constitutional rights of Americans. But their real struggle took place well outside the range of the camera lens, in school hallways, classrooms, cafeterias. They weathered individually the daily slights and indignities, the verbal and physical abuse, and their sometimes profound sense of isolation to make our nation live up to the promise of equality under law. That struggle, that daily struggle, is what we honor here today with the Congress's highest medal. We'll never be able to fully repay our collective debt of gratitude to you for what you did to help America fulfill its destiny. To truly honor your efforts, we must continue to address the question of how we integrate an even more diverse population today into our nation's institutions at a time when apathy and indifference and legal backsliding threaten to reverse your hard-fought gains. Thurgood Marshall recognized an ongoing struggle when he wrote these words. He said, "Desegregation is not and was never expected to be an easy task. Racial attitudes ingrained in our nation's childhood and adolescence are not quickly thrown aside in its middle years. For unless our children begin to learn together, there is little hope that our people will ever learn to live together." To truly honor the Little Rock Nine and all the great heroes of this struggle, all of us must reiterate and invigorate our commitment to basic, simple equality and continue to use your experience, your role model, as our moral compass to guide our way into the next century. America was founded on what were then and are still today radical ideas: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and most importantly, equal opportunity. Those radical ideas are constantly brought to life in the lives of our people. This group of nine, in their time, as very young people, lived out the radical idea of equal opportunity. And we will all, for now and forever, be in your debt for that act of courage and heroism. It is now my honor to present the Democratic leader in the United States Senate, our friend and a great American, Tom Daschle.
Mr. President, to my personal hero, Dale Bumpers, to Congressman Thompson, my colleagues in the Congress, distinguished guests, and most of all, the reason we are here, the members of the Little Rock Nine. In the Bible, the prophet Isaiah tells us that there is a peaceable kingdom where one day the lion will lay down with the lamb and wisdom and understanding will reign. And he tells us a little child will lead us there. Justice does work in mysterious ways. It hardly seems possible that 9 children would be called to lead a nation as powerful as ours. And yet, 42 years ago, with the entire world watching, you were called. And you did lead this nation forward to a new and better place. It is hard to imagine the courage it took for you to go each morning to a school where you were not wanted, where students jeered and spat on you, and National Guardsmen had to walk you from class to class. It is hard to imagine the courage that it took for your parents to watch you walk out that door each morning, never knowing whether you would return that evening and what new emotional or physical scars that you might bear. No one who has seen it is likely ever to forget the image of 15-year-old Elizabeth Eckert walking alone through the mob outside Central High School. Some in the crowd spat on her. Some threw stones. Some threatened she'd be lynched. But Elizabeth Eckert did not look at them. She held her head high and looked straight ahead, her eyes on the prize. Today, we are honored to present her and the rest of the Little Rock Nine the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest prize our government can bestow on an individual. On behalf of a grateful nation, we thank you for moving us closer to our ideal of one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is right that we honor you with these medals, but it is not enough. We've made real progress in the decades since you walked through the doors of Central High. And yet we know there are still too many places where educational opportunities are too limited. We no longer consign children to ill-equipped and inferior schools simply because of the color of their skin. Yet we know too many children are still trying to learn in schools that are overcrowded and obsolete. 42 years after Little Rock, students may no longer risk being attacked by an angry mob just for entering school, but in schools all across this nation, too many young people are threatened by violence. Every day in this country, every day, 13 young people are killed by gun violence. That's the equivalent of one Columbine massacre every day, 365 days a year, and it must stop. We owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude for what you did in 1957 and what you have done since to help fulfill the promise of America. These medals only begin to repay that debt. We have an obligation to you, to ourselves, and to our future to continue working to create the conditions that will enable every child in America to make the most of his or her God-given abilities. When I heard last Thursday that Daisy Bates had died, my first thought was how sad it is that she would not see the children she guided and inspired receive this award. But I think Mrs. Bates is here today, in spirit, and I think she's smiling down on us right now. At the same time, she is reminding us that we have a lot more work to do. 12 years ago, on the 30th anniversary of the Little Rock desegregation crisis, a newspaper reporter asked Mrs. Bates what her hopes were for the next generation of Americans. She replied, "I hope we will be integrated in mind and heart, and that parents will stop teaching their kids to hate and start teaching them to love and respect. One day, this country will achieve that, and then we will have repaid our debt in full to Mrs. Bates and to the 9 brave children of Little Rock who led us towards that peaceable kingdom." It is now my pleasure to introduce the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dennis Hastert.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, distinguished colleagues, distinguished guests. It's an important day for our nation as we gather to honor 9 extraordinary individuals who possess an uncommon trait, that of extraordinary courage. In 1957, I was 14 years old, but I remember reading the papers. Our country stood in the doorway of a new era. The courts were finally ordering an end to forced segregation, and while some were quick to embrace that end of an unholy era, there were others who still guided themselves by fear and hatred. In the midst of this chaotic time arose 9 brave souls who would walk through that doorway and into immortality. In the Old Testament, the prophet Isaiah writes about a time of peace, a time when the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. Dr. King so eloquently took this passage and put it into our modern age and our modern problems when he gave one of the greatest speeches in the history of this nation in the Lincoln Memorial, not too far from here. Dr. King talked about his dream of a day on the red hills of Georgia when the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down and together at the table of brotherhood. When the prophet Isaiah spoke about this period of peace and harmony, and when all God's children could live together in peace, he added, as we talked about a little while ago, a child shall lead him. To usher in a new era of tolerance, understanding, and peace in this nation, we had to be led by 9 students, by 9 children. And the courage they showed in their actions was more than would ever or will ever be mustered by most adults. Our nation does not yet sit united at the table of brotherhood that Dr. King described and hoped for, but we're closer today than we were 40 years ago. And that is due in large part to the 9 brave people who we honor here today. And as we pay our well-deserved tribute and honor to these remarkable people, we also remember and thank those who helped them get through that difficult period, especially Miss Daisy Bates, who went home to the Lord last Thursday. Miss Bates was a stalwart soldier of the civil rights movement, and while we are grieved that she cannot be here in person for this celebration today, I know that her spirit is here with us and will continue to be with all those who fight for racial equality and civil rights. And so today, our Congress pays a long overdue tribute to these 9 individuals who collectively showed our nation what it meant to be brave and free and proud. The Congressional Gold Medal is the highest civilian honor that our Congress can bestow on an individual. And I can think of no more deserving people than the 9 gathered here together today. So on behalf of the Congress, on behalf of our nation, I thank each one of you for not only knowing the way down the path to freedom and equality, but for leading us down it. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my deep honor and great privilege to introduce the President of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Senator Daschle, Leader Gephardt, Senator Hutchinson, Senator Lincoln, members of Congress, Secretary Riley, and members of the Cabinet and the administration. A special word of thanks to Congressman Thompson and to my good friend Senator Bumpers. The great privilege of speaking last is that you get the last word. The great burden is that everything that needs to be said has been said. I would like to begin by introducing some people who have not yet been introduced, but whose presence here is altogether fitting. The story of the Little Rock Nine in the end is the story of the triumph of the rule of law in the American Constitution, which was given expression not only by a decision of the United States Supreme Court, but by a decision of a president determined to enforce the rule of law. A couple of hours ago, I had the great honor of signing legislation naming the old Executive Office Building the Dwight D. Eisenhower Executive Office Building. President Eisenhower's son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter are here, and I would like to ask General John Eisenhower, Joanne, and Susan to stand and be recognized, and thank them for their presence here.
I want to thank all the previous speakers for their very moving words. This is a special day for me, a happy day, a sad day, an emotional day. I thank all of you for what you said about Daisy Bates, who in my years of service in Arkansas became a good friend to Hillary and to me. I was privileged to go to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, which is built around the Lorraine Motel, when we dedicated the exhibit on Central High School with the statue of Governor Faubus on one side and Daisy on the other. And even though by then she had to get around in a wheelchair, she got a big laugh out of that. And what a wonderful laugh she had. So I ask you all to remember her today, her smiling self, for that gave a lot of confidence to those whom we honor. Secretary Slater is representing the administration at her funeral today, and I thank him for that because he would dearly love to be here with his friends. I think it was Senator Hutchinson who first mentioned that we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Berlin Wall's fall today. And it is fitting that we, on this same day, recognize what these people did to make the walls of bigotry and prejudice fall in America. For when they marched up the steps to school, a simple act, they became foot soldiers for freedom, carrying America to higher ground. You know, when Little Rock happened, I was 11 years old, living 50 miles away, like every school child in Arkansas except those in Charleston, all 6 of them. I was, God, I miss you. I miss doing this. When Little Rock happened, all the kids in Arkansas, white and black, we all went to segregated schools with very few exceptions. And these people, they just burst in on our lives. And I feel like I've been walking along with them for 42 years now. Because they forced everybody to think, you know. Before then, I was 11 years old, and my grandparents believed in school integration, and they taught me about that, and I thought, it was a great thing. But the truth is that nobody really thought about it very much because segregation was a way of life, and most people just got up and went through their lives, and nobody questioned it, nobody challenged it. It was just the way things were. It was unfortunate, but that's the way things were. And all of a sudden they showed up, and it wasn't the way things were anymore. And then everyone had to decide. Everyone in everybody's little life, you had to decide, where do you stand on this? What do you believe? How are we going to live? So these people, when they were young, they changed the way we were. I would like to say to all of you that they paid a price for doing that. And they look real fine sitting up here today. And they have this vast array of family and supporters here. And they have lived good lives and accomplished remarkable things. But we're giving them this medal because they paid a price. Daisy said what they endured was a volcano of hatred. And like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they walked out without being burned. But they have their scars. They taught us that you can turn your cheek from violence without averting your eyes to injustice. And they taught us that they could pay their price and go on. On this journey that started 42 years ago, I could never have known that life would bring us in contact. But 12 years ago, on the 30th anniversary of the Central High incident, I invited them all to come to the governor's mansion, and I showed them around in the rooms where Governor Fulvis plotted all the stratagems to keep them out of school. They got a kick out of that, and so did I. 10 years later, as president, I had the profound honor of going to Central High School to hold the doors open for them as they walked in without incident. And it was great. That school now has a very diverse student body and a faculty, one of the best records of academic excellence in our home state. It had then an African-American student body president, which it frequently does, and in all the years I was governor, it was the only high school in my state and one of the few in the country where you could still study Greek. Now we open the doors of this house. And I want to say a special word of thanks to the Speaker and the other congressional leaders for allowing us to make this presentation of, let's not forget, this is the Congressional Gold Medal, which the President always participates in, but usually we do it in their house down Pennsylvania Avenue. But because of our relationship, Mr. Speaker and the other leaders have agreed for us to come here, and I thank them for that, for personal reasons, for our friends. Today we celebrate the faith of our founders, the faith of parents in their children, the faith of children in their future. We celebrate it because we can, and we can because these 9 people helped us to keep it alive and to redeem it. And now, as others have said, it is for us to take that faith into a new millennium. Once again, to redeem the promise of our country by giving all of our children a world-class education and all of our people a chance to be part of our prosperity, and by giving all of our increasingly diverse citizens the chance to be a part of one America. So in addition to giving them the medal, we ought to make that commitment. For, like all people, we, and I certainly include myself in this, we all find it easy to condemn yesterday's wrongdoing. But these people stood up as children to condemn today's. And so let us learn from them and honor their example. The Speaker joined me in Chicago the other day in the common cause of giving economic opportunity to those who haven't had it in this most remarkable of economic recoveries. Many of you have committed yourselves to opening the doors of quality education to all of our children. But the most important thing we have to do is to truly build one America in the 21st century. I want to read you something that Melba Pattillo-Bills put in her book. If my Central High experience taught me one lesson, she wrote, it is that we are not separate. The effort to separate ourselves, whether by race, creed, color, religion, or status, is as costly to the separator as to those who would be separated. The task that remains is to see ourselves reflected in every other human being and to respect and honor our differences. A couple of months ago in this very room, or a couple of weeks ago actually, Hillary hosted one of our nation's top scientists and one of the founders of the internet. and they discussed the remarkable convergence of the explosion in computer advances with the unlocking of the mysteries of the human gene and the gene structure, the so-called genome. And the scientists said that if you put all the people together and you had a genetic map of every individual on Earth, you would find that we are 99.9% the same genetically. Then, even more surprising, perhaps, the scientists said, if you took a representative group of people of different races, if you took 100 African Americans and 100 Chinese Americans and 100 Hispanic Americans and 100 Irish Americans, and you put them in these little groups, you would find that the genetic differences within each group, from individual to individual, are greater than the genetic differences of one group to another. Now, Melbourne knew that before the scientists found it out. Now, I say that to make this point. Every one of us, in some way or another, almost every day, is guilty in some way, large or small, of forgetting that we are 99.9% the same. Every person, every family, every group, every nation is guilty from time to time of trying to give meaning to life by denigrating someone else who is different in some way. Honest and real differences can only be explored, confronted, and worked through. And diversity can only be celebrated when we recognize that the most important fact of life is our common humanity. They all knew that in some instinctive way. The truth is, almost all children know that. They have to be taught differently. Because so many were taught differently, it fell to these 9 Americans when they were young, as children, to become our teachers. And because they taught us well, we are a better country, and we honor them today. But let us not forget to heed their lessons. The book of Job says, "My foot has held fast, I have not turned aside, and when tried I shall come forth as gold." For holding fast to their steps, for not turning aside. We now ask these 9 humble children, grown into strong adults, to come forth for their gold. Major, please read the resolution.
The President is authorized to present, on behalf of the Congress, to the Little Rock 9 gold medals in recognition of the selfless heroism such individuals exhibited and the pain they suffered in the cause of civil rights by integrating Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. Melba Batilo Beals. Elizabeth Eckford. Ernest Green. Gloria Ray Karlmark. Carlotta Walls Lanier. Terrence Roberts. Jefferson Thomas. Minnie Jean Brown Trickey. Thelma Mothershed Ware.
Now speaking on behalf of the Little Rock Nine, the first African American to graduate from Little Rock Central High, Ernie Green.
Thank you very much. The President said it best a few minutes ago that almost everything has been said. It's very difficult to come behind all of these distinguished speakers, but to the President, to the Speaker of the House, distinguished leadership, members of the Congress, both Senate and House, to the Cabinet of the Administration, to the distinguished audience that's here, the guests, and most of all to our families. But I'd like to pay mention again to Senator Bumpers and Congressman Benny Thompson. Without their help, we certainly wouldn't be enjoying these medals. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you very much. This is an awesome responsibility because I get to represent all of us, my 8 colleagues and myself. This has been a long journey. The last 42 years represent obviously a commitment that we, none of us, I don't think so, had any idea it would result in this. We were really ordinary people, and we really owe a debt of gratitude to Daisy Bates and to our parents. And I'd like to have just a moment of silence in memory of Mrs. Bates. Thank you. I'd like to take time, though, to recognize some of the parents who are able to be with us. I'd like to have Emma Jean Brown, Minnie Jean Brown's mother, stand. Mrs. Brown. I'd like to ask Juanita Walls to stand, Carlotta Walls, Lanier's mother. Unable to be here, Lois Patillo, Melba's mother, Marguerite Roberts, Terrence's mother, and Oscar Eckford, Elizabeth's mother. Other parents are looking down from on high, and I think that they would feel that today was a terrific day. I'd like to take the opportunity now. The families know that when we all get together, it is a perpetual teenage group. We all revert to being 16, 17. We have the same arguments we had back in 1957. We have the same joys. We have the same cries. But I'd like to ask the spouses who are here. Phyllis Green, Krista Karlmark, Rita Roberts, Ira Lanier, Mary Thomas, and Fred Ware to stand up. Who? Oh, Jeannie. Well, I said, didn't I say, I said Rita Roberts. It's because Terry gave me her professional name. We had a great debate about this. You messing now. Now I'd like to ask all of our children to stand up. We number some 25, 24. Will all of the children stand up? And Mr. President, I would be remiss if I didn't ask all of our families that are here with us to please stand, all of you, so that the group can recognize you. This is a special day for us. We come to this with a great admiration for all of the work that went in to present us these medals. It has been a long journey, but I think each of us would consider it worthwhile. While the sacrifices have been great, we recognized in 1957 this was not an easy journey. It was one in which we thought we were simply exercising our right to the best education that was available in Little Rock, Arkansas. You know, lo and behold, I think we were right. We were right to exercise our judgment. We had parents and friends and advisors, such as Mrs. Bates, that believed in us. We also had enough sense to know that if we worked hard, tried to play by the rules, just maybe somebody else would support us. So today, as the Little Rock 9, as we said 2 years ago, become maybe the Little Rock 10, and maybe the Little Rock 1,000, and maybe the Little Rock 10,000, and who knows, millions, because just maybe our story will affect some young person and make them believe that they have the opportunity to change their life and their destiny. It is a story that I think, as we see the Eisenhowers here, and we pay a special tip of the hat to you, because President Eisenhower helped usher in a belief on the part of all citizens that this country would stand and support their individual rights. For that, we are grateful to him, and we want to thank you very much for being here. We grew up with a group of parents and friends and advisors who believed, much like Frederick Douglass said, you may not get everything you pay for, but you will certainly pay for everything you get. Power concedes nothing without a struggle. And it is that lesson that we've learned and seen over and over and over again. And Mr. President, to you, for your support along the way, the help, all of the advice that you've given us over the years, we are eternally grateful to you. Today, on behalf of Jefferson Thomas, Melba Patilla Beals, Carlotta Walls Lanier, Minnie Jean Brown Trickey, Thelma Mothershed Ware, Gloria Ray Colmark, Elizabeth Eckford, and Terrence Roberts, we are eternally grateful to you. We say to you, God bless you, thank you very much, but most of all, God bless America.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we have a special treat to cap off this event. But before I introduce the final presenter, I want to say again how much I appreciate the very large delegation from Congress, from both parties who are here, and particularly the fact that every representative from our home state is here, Representative Hutchinson, Representative Dickey, Representative Berry, and Congressman Vic Snyder, the congressman from Central High School. Thank you all for being here. And I want to thank the really large number of people from our home state, from Arkansas, who are here, many who live in Washington, many who have come up here from Arkansas to be here, and thank all of you for coming. And now I would like to ask Reverend Whitley Fitz to come forward to sing us on our way. A great gift to America, and thank you for sharing your time and your gift with us. God bless you, sir. Thank you.
In my heart, I do believe someday we'll all be free. We will be free. I may not know how long 'twill be. Someday we'll all be free. We will be free. Someday we'll all be free. Hold on, my brother, give me your hand. Hold on, my brother, give me your hand. Someday we'll all be free. We will be free. Learning to love, we'll find our way. Someday we'll all be free. We will be free. Someday we'll all. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Take your neighbor's hand right where you are and sing it with me. Come on. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. I know that we shall overcome. We shall overcome. Some deep in my heart, I do believe someday we'll all be free. We will be free. And we shall overcome someday.
last time I'm ever going to get to tell them to do anything. We all have to stand here, just like this, so they can take one more picture. And then we'll... No, you guys have to stand.
Sir, can y'all get together just a little bit? Eyes here, please. Thank you.